Timeout, Lakers.
Because reality is you can't form.
When the cameras caught LeBron James tearing into Austin Reaves during a game, the Lakers were dominating by 20 points. It didn't just look like a veteran chewing out a young guy, it looked personal. But peel back the layers. And that sideline explosion wasn't about missed coverages, it was about the radioactive tension simmering between these two, all circling back to the one name that can shatter the locker room, Bronny James. To understand why the King would snap at a fan favorite like Reaves in the middle of a blowout, you have to understand the third rail of the Lakers organization. The subject no one touches without getting burned. Everything you saw on that hardwood, the clenched jaw, the aggressive body language, the rage is just the spillover from a pressure cooker that has been whistling underneath the surface all season long. And the spark isn't basketball, it's how the men in that locker room look at his blood. Bronny walked into the 2025-2026 season with a target on his back the size of Los Angeles, carrying a heavier psychological load than any second-year pro in league history. Through 29 games, the kid is scraping by with 2.2 points, 0.5 boards, and 1.2 assists in just 7.3 minutes a night. Sure, he's clawed his field goal percentage up to 40% from a disastrous 31.3 as a rookie, trying to find his footing. And yeah, his ball from deep has spiked to 40.7%, showing flashes of a real stroke. But the sample size is microscopic, and the minutes are so garbage time restricted that these stats are just whispers. In a hurricane, he has started exactly one game, and the clock is ticking. Look at the analytics, and he's arguably one of the least impactful players on an active NBA roster. A ghost in a uniform. And the worst part? The entire basketball world from the nosebleeds to the timeline makes sure he never forgets it. You've got ESPN suits and league execs openly calling his roster spot a charity case, swearing that if his last name was Smith, he'd be watching these games from a couch. Old heads like Kwame Brown are going viral with rants, claiming high school kids at the local Y could cook him in a one-on-one. The word nepotism is branded onto his jersey like a scarlet letter walking through the door before he does, in every arena, every media scrum, and every brutal comment section. So when J. Redick dropped a blunt post-game truth bomb in January 2025, admitting Bronny simply didn't play well, it wasn't just coaching. It was treated as a vindication for every critic who's been screaming from the rafters since draft night. The narrative is stone cold, this kid doesn't belong in the show, and his only credential is the man sitting at the end of the bench in the crown. Now, put yourself in LeBron's sneakers. You're 41 years old, looking at the final buzzer of the greatest career ever played, and every single night, you have to watch your own flesh and blood absorb a level of vitriol that would crush a 10-year vet. We're talking about a 21-year-old kid who fought back from cardiac arrest 2 years ago, literally died, and came back and is still trying to rebuild his body and his mind. You see the timelines, you see the memes mocking his survival, you hear the whispers from the podcasters who think the mic is off, and through the noise, you hold the line, publicly stoic, privately seething. The message is simple. He earned his jersey. He's grinding. You got a problem? Come see me. But here's the twist. The casuals miss. The G League tape tells a story that doesn't fit the hate. Down in South Bay, he's popping off for stretches of 15 to 20 points, looking like a legitimate hooper. He's moving the rock. The efficiency is climbing. And that 40.7% from deep in the league, if that number belonged to any other second-round grinder, the analysts would be calling him a steal and a 3 and D-gem, but in the court of public opinion. Facts don't matter. The verdict was handed down the second the Lakers called his name. No amount of G League buckets or hustle plays is going to scrub the stain of how he got here. Bronny James is the Nepo baby until the end of time, guilty until proven innocent. And the weight of that gavel gets heavier every single game he spends rotting on the pine. That is the baggage LeBron hauls into every film session, every team dinner, every side-eye glance in the weight room. He knows his son is being thrown to the wolves, and he knows every guy lacing up next to him, including Austin Reaves, sees the blood in the water. It's not about whether LeBron is sensitive. Any father would be. The real question is, has that protective instinct started to poison the well with his own teammates? Based on the fireworks in February 2026, the answer is a hard yes. So when the internet broke on February 21st, 2026, with a story that Reaves and Bronny threw hands at practice, that teammates had to physically separate them after Reaves supposedly disrespected the prince. It didn't matter that the source was a satire account, a joke page called Jake Morrison NBA. It didn't matter that the bio literally screamed satire in all caps. It didn't matter that Yahoo Sports killed the rumor within the hour, confirming no beat writer or insider heard a peep. What mattered is that millions of fans bought it hook, line, and sinker because the vibe felt true. The idea that a teammate would finally snap at the nepotism and that LeBron would go nuclear to defend his son, to the average fan, that wasn't just a rumor, it was the inevitable climax of the season. You think that pressure just materialized out of thin air? No chance. That was a season's worth of gunpowder, packed tight. 1,000 silent glances, tiny interactions that didn't mean much alone, but when you stacked them up, they built a locker room that felt less like a team and more like a minefield surrounding the most powerful bloodline in league history. See, the casual fans, they miss the subtext. When the king looks a camera dead in the lens and tells you his legacy is his flesh and blood, that isn't PR fluff. That isn't a rehearsed soundbite. He means it with every single fiber of his existence. My legacy is my kids. That's the most important. My kids, my community, my family, that's all that matters to me. When a guy who has held the league in a chokehold for 23 years looks you in the eye and says his son ranks higher than the rings, higher than the records, higher than the Hall of Fame, you better listen. You take him at his word, and you better internalize exactly what that means for your job security if you share a jersey with his boy. The basketball obviously has given me an unbelievable platform to be able to do the things that I love to do. The game gave LeBron the throne, but his kids are the kingdom. And Austin Reaves, poor Austin Reaves, was walking blindfolded into the firing line on national TV, completely oblivious to the fact that he was about to threaten the king's true purpose. Flashback to the night the dam finally broke. February 12th, 2026. Crypto.com Arena. Lakers versus Mavericks. Final board reads 124-104. Dallas had already pulled the plug on their stars. This game was a wrap by the third quarter. In any other universe, the starters are icing their knees on the pine by the 8-minute mark of the fourth, cruising into the All-Star break. But LeBron James wasn't operating on standard time. He was 2 boards shy of career triple-double number 123. At 41 years old, sealing that stat line in a win makes him the oldest player in history to do it. So Coach Redick, he leaves the starters in. And that one decision lit the fuse for the disaster that followed. The lenses caught every desperate second. LeBron haunting the paint like a ghost, ignoring assignments, jockeying for position on uncontested boards. His body language was screaming a message loud enough to rattle the rafters to his teammates. The opponents, the staff, the fans, that grabbing that rebound mattered more to him than anything else happening on that hardwood. Defense, gone. Shot contest, forget it. He was camping under the rim, poaching for a brick, begging for the ball to fall into his lap just to check a box. He's literally standing there, hand out, demanding a freebie. Then you look at the other end, and it's frantic. On offense, LeBron is flipping the script on how a veteran should play with a lead. He's sprinting through sets, rushing possessions, treating the offense like a nuisance he has to get through just to sprint back and park himself under the defensive glass again. And then the moment of truth, clank off the rim. LeBron is right there. But here comes Austin Reaves, undrafted, gritty, the guy who plays every second like his contract depends on it. He does what he's done since he was a nobody trying to make the roster. He snatches the board right out of LeBron's airspace. Not once. Back-to-back possessions. And LeBron, he didn't just get mad. He went nuclear. Redick burns a timeout just to stop the bleeding. You got guys on the bench frantically pointing at the Jumbotron, trying to clue Reaves in on the stat sheet. The staff is trying to intervene, but across the floor, the Dallas Mavericks aren't just watching a basketball game anymore. They're watching a comedy special in real time. They aren't hiding it. They are openly roasting the Lakers. And the loudest heckler on that bench, a 4-ring legend. Klay Thompson is hollering, "Man, they got to give Bron one more rebound." He's cracking up. He's doubling over at the absolute absurdity of the scene. This is Klay Thompson. He built a dynasty with Steph. He knows what championship DNA looks like. And he's sitting there losing his mind at the sight of a 41-year-old icon keeping the starters sweating in a 20-point blowout just to chase a purely cosmetic milestone. But the dagger, the image that really twisted the knife, wasn't Clay's laughter, it was the Lakers' own bench. The cameras panned to Bronny James, and he is fighting for his life not to bust out laughing. Lips pursed, eyes darting from the court to the guys next to him, physically restraining a smile while his pops is out there lobbying for a rebound in garbage time. By morning, the clip is viral, and the optics are catastrophic. You got the opponent mocking him. You got his own son stifling giggles. The only guy in the building who didn't seem to realize it was a joke was LeBron himself. And this is where the narrative shifts from funny to critical. Because this wasn't just about a missed rebound. This was LeBron forcing the issue in front of his son. The kid, the whole internet labels a nepotism hire. The kid struggling to put up 2.2 points a night. Picture the kid. Night after night, the noise creates a deafening echo in his head. Asterisk, you don't belong. Asterisk, now he is glued to the pine, helpless, watching Austin Reaves accidentally rip a piece of history right out of his father's hands. And whether LeBron's explosion was about the box score or something deeper, something tied to the gut-wrenching reality that Reaves' hustle just made the king look foolish in front of his own heir, is a question only James can answer. But the tape screams the truth. By sunrise, the viral commentary painted a brutal portrait of a superstar obsessed with his own reflection, a narrative of stat hunting that has haunted LeBron's entire 41st year. That 10-point scoring streak, one of the longest-standing records in league history, had become his obsession, and watching it nearly die triggered an emotional break that critics are calling a revelation. The prosecution's case was simple and cold. At 41 years old, LeBron James isn't chasing banners anymore. He is chasing the history books. And God help anyone, friend, brother, or teammate who stands between the king and his crown, because they will feel the full weight of his frustration. The critics argue that LeBron is just a mirror of his fan base, addicted to the numbers game. The stat sheet is their Bible, their shield, the only weapon they have left in the war for public opinion. But the harsh verdict hitting the timeline was that none of it matters, not the triple-doubles, not the streaks, not the longevity records, because empty calories don't move the needle on the one debate that actually haunts him: winning. LeBron eventually snatched that rebound. He secured the triple-double, posting 28 points, 12 dimes, and 10 boards, soaking in a standing ovation when Redick finally pulled the plug. The record was safe, but the optics were shattered, and what Austin Reaves dropped in the postgame didn't just add context, it poured gasoline on the fire. The locker room didn't just get quiet, it turned predatory. Every guy in a jersey cornered Reaves, making sure he understood exactly what he almost cost the franchise icon, and then Reaves dropped the detail that exposes the real hierarchy. It wasn't LeBron who checked him, it was the soldiers. The king didn't have to whisper a syllable. Let that sink in. In that sanctuary, when James is in the building, the roster self-organizes like a militia to protect his interests, his numbers, and his image without ever being given an order. That is the Shark Tank Bronny James is trying to survive in. That is the tightrope Austin Reaves walks every single morning. And that is the context you need to understand the twist coming next. The B side of the track: if you have ridden the wave this far, you are probably convinced the Lakers facility is a toxic pressure cooker of massive egos and walking on eggshells fear, and based on the edits and the talking heads, you would be dead right to think that. But hold up, there is another layer to this drama, a reality that the outrage, merchants, the breakdown artists, and the fake fight narratives have zero incentive to show you, because the actual blood and sweat relationship between James and Reaves, it isn't what the algorithm is selling you. It isn't even in the same universe. Flashback to 2021. Austin Reaves, undrafted, 23 years old, straight out of the sticks of Newark, Arkansas, walks into a locker room with Bron, A, D, Westbrook, Melo, and Dwight Howard. He was, by his own account, shaking in his boots. But first practice, he blows past Rajon Rondo on the break, throws a blind dime to LeBron, and tears the roof off the gym. Reaves said that one play broke the chains, the weight of the world vanished. That was the instant the king decided, asterisk, this kid belongs. Asterisk. And from that day on, they were locked in. Fast forward to the Memphis series. 2023. The LeBron Reaves Davis Hydra is destroying teams by plus 14. 0.3 points per 100 possessions. We are talking about one of the deadliest trios in the association. Reaves wasn't just a hustle merchant anymore. He evolved into a starter, a killer shot creator, and the King's right hand. He has gone on record calling Bron a brother, a mentor, a genuine friend who never once let him feel like a two-way contract. Nobody. Even when he was at the bottom of the food chain. And with Bronny, it is all love. November 2025. Reaves does something we haven't seen since the turn of the millennium. He throws lobs to a father and a son in actual NBA action, feeding the King one night and teeing up Bronny against the Heat the next. That isn't the behavior of a bitter vet watching a nepotism hire take his spot. That is a teammate actively paving the runway for the kid to take flight. When the script flipped, LeBron sent down to South Bay for rehab and Bronny getting the miraculous start, Reaves didn't roll his eyes. He embraced the madness with genuine hype, calling it awesome to see Bronny get the nod while his dad was grinding in the development league. There was no sarcasm, no edge, no subtle dig at a rookie averaging 2 points, getting a starter's minutes, just a teammate who found the whole father-son circus genuinely electric and worth celebrating. He even cracked a smile and said the old man should suit up for a G League game himself. The internet was begging for a brawl, a passive-aggressive jab to set the timelines on fire. Instead, they got a lighthearted crack between teammates. It wasn't the dagger the critics prayed for, it was just a joke, but you have to peel back the noise. Listen to the King's actual words from that same road trip, the very same stretch that birthed the Mavericks controversy. What you find isn't the selfish stat-chasing caricature built by the pundits. You find a man operating on a frequency far deeper than box scores. You know, when Bronny checks in, you hear the chants. You feel the energy shift. Do you ever let the guard down? Do you switch into dad mode just for a second and actually soak it in? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Think about that. He flips the switch into dad mode in front of 20,000 screaming fans in the heat of an Bachelor of Arts battle. LeBron James watches his boy walk onto the court and lets himself feel what any father with a beating heart would feel. Pure pride, joy, the desperate, overwhelming hunger to see his son survive in a league that has been screaming you don't belong since draft night. That isn't the mindset of a narcissist obsessed with triple doubles or chasing ghosts. That is a father realizing the impossible dream, sharing the hardwood with his own blood while his wife watches from the sideline. But you won't see that clip on your timeline. The algorithm buries it. Why? Because heartwarming doesn't sell. It doesn't bleed, so it doesn't lead. It doesn't trigger the debates or force you to click those thumbnails plastered with red arrows and fake shock. Cut to the post-game locker room after the Dallas matchup, ground zero for the manufactured drama. Reaves was right there. When the mics were shoved in his face about LeBron's history-making night, his answer crushed the narrative. No resentment, no tension with the old man. Honestly, I think LeBron was just being himself, controlling the floor, doing what he does best. And the rest of us, we just followed his lead. No one twisted his arm. Unprompted, he laid the credit for the team's pulse right at LeBron's feet. He said it because that is the cold, hard reality inside those walls. And when they pushed him, what makes him different at 41? Reaves didn't give a PR script. He sounded like a guy talking about his brother. But here is the kicker. The moment that exposes the lie. They asked about LeBron's daily grind, his energy, and Reaves drops a story you have never seen on SportsCenter. No drama thumbnail, just a random, quiet moment on a bench in Minnesota. It is the small stuff, the unremarkable seconds that never make headlines that tell you who these men really are. I looked at him and said, like, if there is anybody in the entire basketball world who has earned the right to wake up on the wrong side of the bed, it is him. He could get away with it. Reaves is slicing through the noise right there. He is dismantling the villain. The content machine has spent an entire season building the selfish stat chaser, the toxic father poisoning the locker room, the tyrant attacking his own teammates. According to the guy suiting up next to him every single night, that monster doesn't exist, but he never does. Never. Always got a smile on his face, approaches the game the right way, every time, takes care of his body, does the work. And remember January 2026? When Rich Paul floated the idea of trading Reaves, LeBron didn't hesitate. He shut it down. He looked the reporters in the eye and said, AR knows how I feel about him, emphasizing that they don't just play together, they talk every single day. You don't say that about a guy you are attacking over a cheap rebound. You say that about a soldier you trust with your life on that court. So when they asked Reaves point blank about the team's chemistry, he gave an answer that quietly buried every rumor of tension this roster has faced. Yeah, it is the connectivity. Everybody cares for one another. Everybody wants to see the next man succeed. And everyone means everyone. That includes Bronny. That includes LeBron. That includes Austin Reaves. The practice fight, fake. The on-court frustration, real, but it lasted 90 seconds and ended with a handshake and a standing ovation. The supposed beef between LeBron and Reaves over the rookie, it is a ghost story. It does not exist in any verifiable, documented reality. Here is the truth. A 41-year-old father is living a dream alongside his son. A loyal teammate has their backs, and an internet machine will always choose the bloody lie over the boring truth because the lie pays the bills. Whether that bothers you says a hell of a lot more about you than it does about anyone wearing purple and gold. That is where the story lands. No brawl, no explosion, no locker room civil war like the thumbnails promised you. The reality is quieter. It is human. And yeah, it is messier than a headline could ever capture. The reality inside that locker room cuts deeper than the headlines, and it is far more human than the internet has the patience to stomach. You are looking at LeBron James, a 41-year-old Titan fighting Father Time to pull off a feat that no one in the history of pro ball has ever dared to attempt. He is suiting up next to his own blood on the biggest stage on earth, while the whole world watches, judges, and decides in real time if this is history or just a stunt. Then you have Austin Reaves, a 27-year-old grinder who went undrafted, a dog who had to scratch and claw for every single minute he has ever tasted on that hardwood, only to find himself navigating a political minefield where the team's alpha isn't just the captain, he's the father of the rookie sitting 3 spots down. And Bronny James? He is a 21-year-old kid who hears the word nepotism screamed louder than his own name every time he steps in the arena. A young man who went into cardiac arrest 2 years ago, stared death in the face, and fought his way back just to play professional basketball, forcing him to learn the NBA game at warp speed while millions of critics tell him he has no right to even lace up his shoes. But here is the twist. None of these guys are villains. Nobody threw a punch. That practice fight was fiction invented by a troll account, and that tense rebound moment lasted 90 seconds and ended with a laugh. The beef between LeBron and Reaves over Bronny is a ghost story, a narrative that exists only in the empty space, between the reality of the locker room and what the algorithm manipulated you into believing just to keep your eyes glued to the screen. Now you know the score. What you do with that truth is on you. Thanks for watching. Check the other clips on the screen.